I'm going to quickly go over things that I missed when I was buying this combine. Maybe a word of warning for anyone that was looking at a 510 or any Massey. They're all kind of the same but completely different at the same time. And certain things that I look for kind of right off the bat is if this slip clutch is wore out or looks a little funky all the way together, compressed with a spring or whatever. I mean, it's different with every combine. They all have a lot of hours. Anyone that bought a 510 Massey bought it to use and use hard. This was the biggest bear of its day, and top dog, as one of my guys on Facebook commented on it. Top dog of its day. One thing to look at is your cross auger housings, if they are rusted out, or your fan housing, which is located up there. And then moving on, you want to pay special attention to this seam right here of bolts. If the chopper was ever out of balance and it didn't fall off, like I mentioned in an earlier video, you would end up breaking your butt apart right around here. You would get stress fractures, the metal would fatigue, and with me, I never like to see when they cram them in the barn. Most of the time they figured if they could cram the butt 1.5 feet closer to the combine, then they could fit it in the barn with all their other things. Once again, you want to look up this side. I've looked at 510s. These are broken out. Just vibrate the entire machine to pieces. And now I'm going to go up top. My combine has all these hammer marks on the top of the butt, and what that is when the rear end packs full. In this case, I believe it was corn stalks, as pointy as these are, and the operator doesn't know it, and it just keeps hammering in there. And that leads me to the next part. You need to open this door, and this is the worst part of your inspection. You want to crawl inside there with a flashlight. I know it's dark now. And you want to stand on 2 of your straw walkers and then pull up on them with your hand, the straw walkers you're not standing on, to see if your blocks are loose. This will create excessive vibration and stress on your straw walkers because they develop a hammering effect and will break your straw walkers up. If you've watched my documentary series on this combine, every straw walker end has had the original metal torn off and repaired. They're supposed to be uniform all the way out to the back, and these are not. Whoever had it did a nice job, but you can tell that it was done. It will function, but that is something to be leery of. Once you're down inside, you have to pull this rubber curtain up, and you want to crawl down in. It's not fun. You're on a bed of razors. It's definitely not fun if they have fish backs installed in the combine. And you crawl down in past this curtain, past the next set of curtains, which are all individual, about 6 inch. They're supposed to flap individually. When you are working on the combine, you'll want to get all those free. And then you inspect your rear beater, make sure that all the components are there, and make sure that there's no loose components or broken off components. There could be anything down in there. I've never had any problems, but it's something I always inspect when I'm going to buy the combine. The next thing you want to look at is breakage over the entire machine. A keen eye can spot this. Right here below the main variator arm, I spotted this breakage. It wasn't bad, but I could tell that it was broke. And me being a pretty good welder, I was able to repair mine easily. But that's something to think about if you're not a welder, or you don't have the know-how, or have any friends that have the know-how, or a good machine shop close by that can repair that. Some of the older 510s and 410s, this wasn't really a problem on the 550 because of the different style of dishing that they did. They used a huge half-inch thick plate instead of a stamped piece of steel like this one. They will break out, and that's why I believe this has this sandwich plate here that squeezes the tire together. They will break out around your lug nuts, or I have seen them break out around here, around these outer grooves. It was just a weakness in the tire, and actually where I bought the Parts 550 from, the man that came over before me bought the tires off of the 550 and put his standard 510 tires on it, and they were broken out right around here. Heavy duty welding, that's always something to keep an eye on. I have seen this on one 550 I was going to look at. This piece had broken, and the chain was the only thing holding it to the combine, and that chain was super tight. That's an easy fix, this piece, but it is something you will have to contend with. You got to drop your throat, and who knows if anything else was torn up when that happened. I'm not going to take my spinner off, but on an inspection you can kind of see through them, and I could tell that mine was in good shape right off the bat. But if the spinner gets out of balance, it wasn't so much a problem on the 510s because they were built heavier, more industrial, but on the 300s especially, most all of them have come loose and broken, and they're always welded up. Most farmers could kind of get them welded up. You don't really have to be an engineer to start adding gussets, but that is something to look at when you are purchasing any of these older style combines. The 550s and 540s, you never had to worry about it because they did away with it. On all 510s, 300s, and 410s, anything with a diesel engine, they will have this factory tied, you can still barely see the red paint on there. That is a lead clip or crimp that ties this cable together. If this is removed and wired together, someone has been inside your governor or injection pump messing with your settings. We discovered this on the corn diesel that we've sold since then, and someone had turned it up looking for more power. The only problem with that is once you start spinning things faster on an old combine like this, it's held together with sheet metal, you start getting things out of balance and you start causing major breakage problems, which we documented on the corn diesel. That is something to look for, is that little lead crimp. Something else to look at, we're up here on the clean grain elevator now, is open this little hatch. Some of them are easier to open than others, and inspect your top sprocket. This is where you will pick up the most wear if your elevator chain has been ran too tight or too loose. And just for that gear, that is, I believe, $170 or $100, I can't really remember. Another thing to look at while you're up here is how sharp your auger flighting is. On my combine, if you watch the series, I never have found a sharp auger on the combine. That's a good indicator of low hours. However, I know this combine does have hours on it. How many they are, I don't know. It does not have an hour meter. I would also check the sharpness of your rethrash cross auger and your clean grain cross auger. Something I didn't mention and is worth noting, if you get lucky, you may have found a guy that would write like I do on his oil filters, fuel filters, or air filters when he serviced the combine last. When I took this all apart, every filter that was on it except the air filter in the cab said 2000, the year 2000 on it, and then the cab filter said 2005 on it. That got changed quite frequently because mice like to nest in them, and mine actually just arrived this morning. As with any machine, you want to check your hydraulic fluid, your oil, and your radiator coolant. Most of the time you cannot see the coolant in the radiator, especially if one has been sitting, but if you have milk in your oil or chocolate milk, you probably have a blowed head gasket or water is getting by or into the system somehow.